Hey guys, we're back with Chapter 6 of The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. If we recall from the last chapter, the time traveler got off his time machine and was getting integrated with the local people. Let's hop right in. Chapter 6, The Time Machine Vanishes. As I sat resting on the hill, it struck me as odd that there were no small houses around. Only palace-like buildings. Had the single cottage and maybe the family too disappeared? Looking back at the half-dozen little figurines who were following me, I realized still another way in which things were different from our day. These people all had the same girlishly rounded limbs and hairless faces. They all wore the same silky, soft type of tunic. Looking at them now, I couldn't distinguish the men from women. What more, the children seemed like slightly smaller versions of their parents. I began to puzzle at how this similarity of the sexes had come about. It had to be because they lived a life of security and ease. It's only in an age of physical force, I told myself, that men must be strong fighters and women soft homebodies. But when there's no violence, there's no need for the family unit. So the special roles of male and females in caring for children's needs have disappeared. These ideas sounded convincing, but before long, I was to discover how very wrong my fine-sounding conclusions were. I pushed on to the crest of the hill, passing something that looked like a well, with a cupola or domed top covering it. My, I remember marveling to myself, so that old-fashioned way of getting water has survived this long into the future. At the top of the hill, I found a seat of a yellow metal that was unfamiliar to me. The seat was pitted with a pinkish rust and was half smothered in moss. Each of his armrests was shaped like the head of a griffin. That mystical beast with the head and wings of an eagle and the body of hind legs of a lion. From here, I had an excellent view. The sun had sunk below the horizon and the western sky was flaming gold, touched with horizontal bars of purple and red. Below was the Thames River Valley, with the river like a shiny steel band. As my eyes traveled over the land, I saw the great palaces, some in ruins and some that looked lived in, dotting the assorted greenery. Here and there were huge white or silver statues. But there's no private homes, no hedges or fences to mark off property, and absolutely no signs of farming. The earth had become one huge wild garden, and again found myself wondering, what has happened to mankind since my day? It certainly looks like it's dying out. I reasoned that evidently man has reached some kind of peak in its accomplishments. He had managed to wipe out the seas and had perfect plants to nourish himself easily, for I saw no weeds or bugs around. There's a mystery here, I told myself. How come the little people are so well dressed and yet I've never seen anybody at work? There's no transportation vehicles or traffic either. What about the shops and businesses and factories that played such important parts of everyday life in my time? While I was in this curious mood, one question led to another. How did people on my planet get so soft and empty-handed? I can only guess at the answer. I'll bet not having to work has ruined humanity. Man needs to struggle, to face hardships, in order to be strong, energetic, and intelligent. Then how did I explain these little people with no wars, animals, or disease to fight the weak people? The weak people survive better than the strong, because they weren't as restless, and they lived a life of contented idealness. It seemed to me that even man's artistic spirit was gone. I'd seen no evidence of great paintings, murals, or sculptures. I'd heard no melodious music instruments, nor ringing choruses of human voices. All that remained of the arts seemed like little people decorating themselves with flowers and singing and dancing in the sunlight. What a simple explanation, and so believable too. There was only one thing that was still the matter with. It was completely wrong. Yes, I was soon to learn the surprising and terrible truth. Ready to descend from the hill, as the full moon came up, I noticed that the bright little figurines had stopped moving about in the valley below. I looked for buildings, and I knew my eye traveled to the white sphinx on the bronze pedestal. But something was wrong. I could see the silver birch against it, and the purple ronderins black now, in the pale moonlight around it. There, too, was too little lawn I had landed on. Or was it? No, I cried out. No, it cannot be the same lawn. Yet the sphinx was facing it. But the time machine was gone! It mustn't be marooned in this strange world, I thought, running down the slope, frantic with fear. Once I fell and cut my face, but jumped up and ran on, ignoring the warm trickle of blood down my cheek and chin. I must have covered the 2 miles from the crest of the lawn in 10 minutes. I ran around the black tangle of ronderin bushes furiously, but finally stopped, my hands clutching my hair in agony. Above me, the great white sphinx seemed to be smiling, mocking my dismay. My machine, I cried. How has that huge machine disappeared? I had to stop my panic and try to think clearly. Perhaps the Eloa, as the little people were called, might have wanted to help me by moving it to a sheltered spot. But I knew very well that they had neither brains nor the muscle power to budge that thing. I can't have taken on another time trip, I told myself, for I have the stop and start levels right here with me. I fingered them in my pocket nervously as I faced up to a frightening fact that some other power I hadn't met myself had taken my invention. I must have hit the edge of madness then. I remembered running in and out of the bushes, around the sphinx, yelling, "Where is it? Where can it be?" I remember startling some white animals, which in the dim light I took for small deer. Then, sobbing and raving, I headed for the great stone building. The big hall was dark and silent, deserted. I slipped on the uneven floor and fell over onto the marble tables, almost breaking my shin. I lit a match and went into the second great hall, where about 20 of the little people were sleeping on cushions. "Where is my time machine?" I bawled, grabbing them and shaking them. What a dumb thing to do. Some of the little people laughed and others looked frightened. This, by the way, surprised me, because I thought man had forgotten fear in this day of age. I ran out into the moonlight, sobbing and screaming wildly. Lord, how could you do this to me? Is this my fate? To be a strange animal in a world I don't know? I flung myself down on the ground, near the white sphinx, crying continuously until I finally fell asleep. I woke up in a different mood. In the freshness of the morning, I still felt sad, but I was calmer now, thinking more clearly and determined to try to make some plans. Maybe if I had to, I would eventually find the materials to build another time machine. But before I attempted to do that, I had to be certain that it hadn't been taken and hidden. If that were so, I had to find the machine's hiding place and get it back, either by force or by cunning. That's it for Chapter 6 this week. Leave a comment on what force or who might have taken the time machine. What do you think happened? As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week in Chapter 7 of The Time Machine.